John Deaton is a very heterodox Republican. He grew up in poverty in the Detroit area. He has a memoir called Food Stamp Warrior, which is packed with poverty, violence, sex. Yes, we have a copy up in the newsroom. I'll bring it down so you can check it out and see what I'm talking about. He also, when it comes to heterodoxy, has not voted for President Trump ever, which is interesting, and I think a recipe for success here in Massachusetts. We've talked about how even though President Trump has a hold on the party nationally, people really, really don't like him. Here in Massachusetts, independent voters and Democratic voters don't like him. So I think the party is smart to look at, potential Senate nominee who has kept distance from himself and Trump. Let's actually take a listen to what he had to say about Trump's approach to immigration enforcement.
Someone who comes here illegally that commits a felony, let's work together to get that person deported. That doesn't mean I support snatching grad students off the street because they wrote an op-ed you don't like, right? Shame.
Yeah, sorry I interrupted him. Yes, I just wanted to be clear. He's referring to the Tufts grad student.
Rumez Ozturk.
Right, who was held in detention for many months.
Now, what he went on to say, and this is an important, other part of the equation, he went on to fault Democrats like Governor Maura Healey and Michelle Wu, mayor of Boston, who he mentioned by name, for being, as he describes it, too intransigent, too unwilling to work with federal immigration authorities. He's very big on arguing that there needs to be a middle ground between extremes. He thinks that the federal government would overreach less if local officials would cooperate more. So that's something worth noting about him. He also, and I was fascinated by this, he is very attuned to economic populism. He comes at it from a conservative point of view. His solutions are conservative ones, not liberal or progressive ones. But he thinks, for example, that the wealth gap is the greatest problem facing the country today. And when he and I were chatting, he actually expressed what I found to be grudging empathy for Zohran Mamdani, the mayor-elect in New York City. Let's take a listen to that.
Let's not call Zohran Mamdani names. Let's try to figure out why a person like him is appealing to people. Why is his message resonating with Americans? And it's because they can't afford to live.
Again, I think that stands out. You don't hear a lot of Republicans saying, well, we understand the source of Zohran Mamdani's appeal. They are quick to call him names. So I was struck by Deaton issuing that cautionary note.
And clearly he's somebody who read the exit polls or saw the headlines from them.
Yep, definitely.
Yeah, which these three key elections we were talking about that happened just last week where people were saying,
affordability.
Yeah.
It's the affordability. Yep.
Stupid. Yeah.
Right, exactly. I didn't want to say the word. Figured I'd leave it to you.
Good old James Carville. Speaking about the economy, a little bit of a transition here, but it's not all about the economy, but it touches on it, and it's a lot about healthcare. I want to talk about the aftermath of the shutdown with you. I talked this week to one member of our delegation all of whom voted against reopening the government. I talked to Congressman Stephen Lynch, and I started by asking him, did the Republicans win the shutdown? Here was his answer.
Well, so far, it looks that way. We had a period where Democrats actually had some leverage, where we could actually stand up and fight for the people that we care about. And, in my mind, I just think that, a certain number of us caved, and it undermined that fight.
Adam, what do you think of Lynch's take on how this went down for Democrats?
Pretty blunt assessment, characteristically blunt assessment there from Congressman Lynch. I think that the question of who won and who lost is yet to be answered. Okay. If the Senate comes to some sort of deal as promised, or if they take up the issue of extending Affordable Care Act subsidies and strike a deal, and then if the House of Representatives under Speaker Mike Johnson refuses to bring that deal to the floor for a vote, then all of a sudden, I think we might be talking once again about Democrats winning the shutdown as opposed to Republicans. That's a big if, but I think the betting money right now would be, the conventional wisdom is that Mike Johnson, he doesn't want an Affordable Care Act fix. So I'd say it's going to take us a couple months to figure out who won and who lost.
Well, one thing also, speaking of our delegation, I think we have to talk about this. One thing that came up is some seriously lacerating criticism of Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer. Some of that came from predictable sources like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And I asked Lynch about that, and he said, well, she's got...
she might want to run against him.
Right,
Yep.
she has a particular dog in that fight, but it also came from people like, of course, Seth Moulton, who is running against Ed Markey in the Democratic primary here
Well,
in
we
the
could
state.
also say that Seth Moulton has a dog in that fight, and
Yes.
that it's not a surprise to hear him criticizing Chuck Schumer as an example of an out-of-touch generation of leadership. Yeah, he goaded Ed Markey, saying, Chuck Schumer didn't get the job done when it came to the shutdown, keeping his caucus in line. Maybe now Ed Markey will join me in calling on Chuck Schumer to be booted as leader of the Senate Democrats. It plays to Moulton's advantage. If it continues to sort of bubble up as a theme, I think that plays to Moulton's advantage. I think having Nancy Pelosi, who Moulton tried to oust as House Speaker, and at the time, how many years ago was that? You got to help me out. Was that
I don't
5
know.
years ago, 6 years ago?
But I had
wanna
commented
say
to
that.
you when we were talking before that at this point he could legitimately claim to be the OG of tooting the generational change horn.
Yes,
Could he not?
Yes, he's been saying it for years, which maybe could get in the way of the generational change argument, since he's been saying it for quite a long time. There have been times when it's looked like it is leading him absolutely nowhere. I mean, the Pelosi thing, I think up until now, most people have remembered as a flop.
Right.
But if you see him as the original architect of the argument that what Democrats need to do is have this massive generational shift, then all of a sudden it starts to look a lot better.
It starts to look prescient.
Yeah, it does. It does. I don't disagree.
Not that we're, saying that, Ed Markey needs to go down or that we agree with him.
No,
his
but it
criticism.
just looks like he may have been ahead of the curve as opposed to barking up a tree that no one else was interested in barking up.
Yeah. And also, I just wanted to very briefly touch on, you were following this vote in Somerville, and we've been
Quickly, yes.
listening to your reporting this morning on this. What divesting from Israel?
Yep, they passed a non-binding resolution. It got more votes than Mayor-elect Jake Wilson got in Somerville. Now the people who championed this non-binding resolution want to make it binding. Wilson has said he doesn't think that it is going to pass legal muster and that he didn't vote for it. So it's going to be this very interesting dynamic where we have a new incoming administration. We have very highly motivated activists who got this measure on the ballot and then pushed it through. Whether he reassesses his conclusion that it has no legal merit, we shall see.